If I was breaking into the cybersecurity industry and I knew nothing at all to do with cybersecurity, but wanted to be a part of it, this is where I would start. Hi, my name is Bray. I'm an ethical hacker, and today I want us to talk about networking. So, what exactly is networking? I don't mean the networking where you dress up, you go talk to strangers. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the computer networking. So, this is basically how computers work, like how one message reaches another computer's message. And if you want to enter like any form of cybersecurity, understanding networking and understanding how information actually moves between devices is very key in any IT career. So I want us to talk about two models in this networking, being the OSI model and the TCP/IP model. So what exactly am I talking about? The OSI model and the TCP/IP model, practically both these models, are somewhat of like a framework that was created for us human beings to understand how computers practically talk to each other. You know how when you're talking to a human being, you're just opening your mouth and your vocal, I don't know how talking works. I guess your vocal cords clash with each other. I don't know, who knows. But these frameworks are what was industry known created for us human beings to understand how computers actually communicate to each other. So let's start off with the OSI model. The OSI model it contains 7 steps, but the TCP/IP model contains 2 steps. So I'll explain the difference later, but for now let's talk about the OSI model. So we'll start off with layer 7 and then move each step all the way to layer 1, just to get a pretty good understanding. The reason why I want to start with layer 7 and then move all the way to layer 1, essentially why I'm going backwards, is just so that you can get a better understanding from the start. So let's start with layer 7. Layer 7 is called the application layer. So it's kind of like, let's give it a modern day example. It's kind of like you writing a letter. So this is you actually using the apps, opening your web browser, sending an email, uploading a photo to Instagram. It's the part you see and interact with. So the next layer, which is layer 6, after that is the presentation layer. So this is kind of like a translator. So let's say the same letter that you wrote, you want to send it to somebody in Spain, and you want the letter to be written in Spanish. So it kind of translates those words, or it's kind of like putting your letter in an envelope. It formats your data so both sides understand the message. So it kind of converts images to JPEG, encrypts passwords so they're secret, compresses files to make them smaller, blah 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 blah. Then the next layer would be layer 5, which is the session layer. So this is like the conversation, so it's like, imagine you're having a phone call with someone and the session layer keeps track of that conversation from start to finish, making sure you're still talking to the exact same person and managing when the call starts and ends. Now after this layer is layer 4, which is transport. This is the transport layer. So the delivery, it's kind of like a delivery guarantee. So it has some, let's call them like 2 features. Okay, we're just trying to simplify this video for fresh ears. So the transport layer, this is like choosing between regular mail or certified mail. So TCP is like the certified mail. you know, like I'm talking about like the letters, like the emails, whatever. You get confirmation it's arrived, and then they'll resend it. If let's say it gets lost, they'll resend it. But if you use UDP, it's kind of like dropping a postcard in the mail. It's fast, but you're not necessarily guaranteed that you will receive that message. So this layer makes sure your message arrives complete and in order. That's basically what the transport layer does, which is layer 4. Now the next layer is layer 3, which is the network layer. Let's call it like a routing system. So this is like your postal service figuring out how to get your letter from, let's say, New York to California. It looks at your zip code, your IP address, and decides, should this go by plane? Should it go through cities? What journey exactly is it going to take? So this is the function of routers in this layer. That's what they do. They decide which direction this message of yours is going to go. Then layer 2 would be the data link layer. So this is kind of like a local post office. It's like your neighborhood post office that handles your mail within the city. It makes sure your package gets from your house to the local sorting center using your street address. So in networks, this uses something called a MAC address. IP addresses, like practically all devices on this world need a MAC address and an IP address. So a MAC address and an IP address is kind of like unique numbers that identify your computer. It's kind of like how you have your name. you know yourself. It's how I'm called Brie. It's also how you also have a name. And that's how let's say like the government identifies you, like whatever. So in this data link layer, it uses switches a lot. Then the final layer is layer 1, which is the physical layer. This is the stuff you can actually touch. So the delivery, let's call it like a delivery truck. So this is the actual roads and vehicles. In computers, it's the cables, the Wi-Fi signals, those weird wires you see in tech stores and I don't know, server rooms. Like, it's the physical stuff. Now, let's talk about the TCP/IP model. So the TCP/IP model has 4 layers. So let's start again from the last one, going all the way to the first layer, just to give you somewhat of like a backwards understanding from how everybody uses computers. So layer 4 is the application layer. This is the apps you use, all the programs you use like Chrome, Gmail, Netflix, Zoom, and then we'll move on to the transport layer. So this is you choosing like your reliable delivery, or what I was talking about earlier, like the UDP and the TCP. Okay, yeah, so that's basically what the transport layer does. And for moving on to the next layer is layer 2. This is the internet. So the system kind of figures out how to get your data across the entire internet to the right destination, like how my message, let's say in Australia, will reach somebody miles and miles across the globe. And then we'll come back to the first layer, which is the link layer. So this kind of has a combination of the data link layer and the physical layer. So it kind of like combines the truck and the local post office. So everything about anything physical, moving data, that's where the layer 1, whatever is happening there. So just to give you a real example, it's kind of like you watching this YouTube video. You probably had to click something to come here. So that would be your application layer, and then now it would go down to transport layer, which is your computer breaks down this video into smaller chunks, either using TCP or UDP, and makes sure every piece arrives smoothly. And then the next layer And then the next layer would be the internet. So each chunk gets an address, just showing that it needs to go from here to here. It needs to go to the YouTube servers. It needs to go, like, there is given an address, and then we'll move on to the link stroke physical layer. So this is data that travels through your Wi-Fi, through cables, routers, across the internet. Yeah. So YouTube will now send the video back the same way, and all these layers work together so you can just see a video play smoothly. There's actually a lot that goes into you just watching this video. So why are there two models? Like, why is it that the OSI model and the TCP/IP model exist? Like, why? So the OSI is kind of like the detailed textbook explanation with the 7 layers, but the TCP/IP is what actually happens in real life. 4 layers, much simpler. So it's kind of like a simplified version, but it's like the difference between a detailed anatomy textbook and just knowing head, body, arms, legs. Both describe the same thing, but one is more detailed for learning and the other is more practical for everyday use. So when it comes to any IT industry, understanding how computers work will definitely be the best foundation to ever have in the industry. There's no maybe they are there, but I feel like they're very little. But there's no career, or like there's no role that I know of. Maybe they exist, I don't know. I don't think there are any IT careers that don't necessarily touch networking. So you understanding how these computers communicate with each other, how they send information, is a really good basis to learn anything. So yeah, today I just wanted to explain the networking concepts, give you a better understanding of the OSI model, the TCP/IP model. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. I'll see you soon.